Welcome to the Strong for Life podcast. I'm your host, Conor O'Shea, and I really appreciate you tuning in. If you are enjoying these episodes, I'd really appreciate you taking a moment and rating it 5 stars on Spotify or on Apple or whatever podcast platform you use. This is going to allow more people to find this information. Without further ado, let's jump into today's show. Okay, folks, so this week myself and Brad are going to talk about how to build or break good or bad habits. We're going to talk through the steps that we use for ourselves with clients, and then specific habits that we actually get clients to work on. And I think, first of all, it's just important to realize that all of the position that you're in right now today is a result of all of the habits that you've built up over your lifetime. And depending on your upbringing, the neighborhood you grew up in, where you're from, all of these things are going to be related to your habits. But regardless of that situation, these steps are going to help you to actually start taking control and building the habits that you want and breaking the habits that you want to reduce or eliminate. So let's jump in. So Brad, how's everything going, mate?
I thought you're going to say, what's your bad habit?
Yeah.
Yeah, things are going well, thank you. How about you?
Things are going good. We had a good old chat there before we jumped on, so we had
Yeah,
a bit of
I,
banter.
I was telling Connor about my exciting new pull-up bar edition, which I feel like it's Christmas. It's so exciting.
Yeah. Definitely, if you don't have a pull-up bar in your house, it's the best thing ever because you can decompress your spine if you sit a lot, which is a really nice feeling. So let's jump in, Brad. We're going to talk about the habit loop first. So you've got cue, craving, response, and reward. And this is from Charles Duhigg, and James Clear as well talks about this. So these two guys are the kind of world leading experts. They've both written the most popular books on habit formation and change. But I'd like you to jump in, Brad, and just give people some examples of okay, what's a cue? What happens? What's a craving? What's a response? What's a reward? So people can kind of see, their daily behaviors and how this actually happens. Okay.
Okay, sure. First one I think is one that we'll all be very familiar with throughout the days is your phone buzzes with a notification. That's a cue. Okay. And then the craving is you want to know what is in that notification. Who tagged you? What's happening on Instagram? I want to know. I want to know. So you grab your phone, you look at the notification, you satisfy that craving by looking at your phone, but then you have this pairing up of every time the phone buzzes, you've got this associated behavior of grabbing your phone. I mean, that's like, you got to be some sort of very, very strong-willed person to not have fallen victim to that these days. So yeah, another one is
just on that, Brad. Just on the phone one. Have you heard of BJ Fogg?
No.
So BJ Fogg would be he would be probably the world leading researcher on habit formation and change. He wrote a book called Tiny Habits, and he's a lecturer in Stanford. So he actually teaches this stuff, right? And his student is the guy who created Instagram, one of his students. So he actually teaches people like how to create habit forming, software. Obviously, Instagram's like the most addictive app in the world and has been for whatever 10 years. So yeah, he's actually, it's just funny you're saying that because it's all by design. You're basically fighting against the smartest people in the world who know all of the research around creating habit forming applications, with your phone. So cool. Jump into the second one,
So
man.
that's where I should send my strongly worded letter of complaint to Professor Fogg, is it? Yeah.
Exactly. Complain to
Well,
BJ about that.
now, we were actually talking about this on our weekly client call, coaching call with clients, where so we've got these habits that we want to break, say, that are often tech related, and you just got to keep reminding yourself that any victory is a huge victory because, as you say, it's been completely designed to keep us engaged and hooked. So yeah, I think like a large amount of self-compassion is required during these
And
processes.
if your
Okay, cool.
notifications are on, if your notifications are on, you're gonna fail. Like, so don't like that's the easiest thing is like turn your notifications off. If you're getting pinged every second that someone messages you or you get a like or whatever, like you're you're just not you're going to keep responding basically. So yeah, notifications off is like the simple kind of low hanging fruit that you can just implement right away.
Okay. Yeah, another thing to think of in the evening is clocking off into airplane mode quite early on in the afternoon, early evening if you can, and then leave it till the day or next day. Okay, so another one is tech related. Think about all the times you're answering your emails. You start feeling a bit stressed, a bit overwhelmed. You want to feel in control, so maybe you start biting your nails. Your biting nails is the response to the craving of wanting to feel in control, but then you start associating this behavior of answering emails with biting your nails. So I know, unfortunately, I'm not someone who bites their nails, but a friend of mine has struggled all her life, and it really is an amazingly deeply embedded thing. So being able to identify what precedes it or what pairs with it is obviously very powerful self-realization. Another cue, think about in the morning, probably maybe even more people than with the phone example. You wake up, you want to feel alert. So what do? You drink a cup of coffee. Okay, so a cup of coffee is a response to the craving of wanting to feel alert. But now every time you wake up, that's what you do. You have a coffee. It's paired with this, wake up, drink coffee. Okay, and obviously, depending on how you use coffee, there might not be anything too worrying about that. But yeah, for a lot of people, maybe coffee can be a little bit problematic.
Do you drink coffee?
And also this idea, me, no, I don't. Much to
Oh, whoa.
the annoyance of a lot of people. Yeah, I don't drink any caffeine. I mean, not for
Oh,
any reason other than I just never. I didn't grow up in a coffee drinking household. Didn't like really ever. Wasn't my vibe to go and chill at coffee houses. So yeah, managed to escape it.
that's
So,
great, man. Like I'm
yeah.
a coffee fiend, I think you can say. But it's really funny, like if everyone in Australia is so addicted to coffee, because the coffee is it's like crack in Australia. It's like so good. And if especially in Melbourne. So Melbourne just breaks you because it's just too good. So that's I just got completely hooked in Melbourne because it was just it's the best place in the world for coffee.
Is
So
that they were the originators? Was it third wave coffee? Or was it
yeah,
late? Yeah.
third wave specialty coffee, Melbourne. Like now it's kind of Romania has actually got an amazing scene, Bucharest and Cluj and Timișoara. But then Berlin, Barcelona would be really good. Ironically, Italy has terrible coffee, which is really funny because everyone thinks it
I've
has good
heard that.
coffee.
Yeah.
It's awful. Like it's just really, really bad coffee, which is really funny because everyone thinks that Italian coffee is great, but it's actually not. Um, but
What about an Irish coffee?
well, the speciality scene in Ireland is improving. Like Dublin would be pretty good. Like Limerick, where I'm from, or just outside Limerick, there's two good cafes there. It's still pretty underdeveloped, but Dublin would be good. Edinburgh would be very good. That was the first place I studied there, 2006 to 2010, and they had specialty coffee then. That's actually what got me into it. But it's I guess if you can avoid it, like caffeine, that's amazing, man. Would you just have
Well,
rooibos tea, or what do you do?
I don't even really drink warm drinks.
Oh my god, what do you
Yeah, in
do?
when I just drink water.
Just
Um,
water.
yeah, sometimes in winter, like I'll eventually succumb to my wife's many offerings for tea, and I'll go, all right, yeah, I'll have a cup of tea. But yeah, it's never really been a go-to thing. I do feel left out with the coffee though, because all of my friends are sort of heavy coffee drinkers. And yeah, it's nice. They always get so excited about coffee and excited
Yeah.
about pairing their Saturday morning treat. A lot of us live in the same area, and we meet at a little coffee house in the village, and there's like really good treats. I don't even end up getting a treat because it's like it's too early to have a treat. If you have a coffee, then the treat makes sense. But without the coffee, it's what am I doing? I also just have. I also just wait for breakfast.
Yeah. So you've no
I feel
vices. So
left out.
basically, you've
I
no
feel left
vices.
out. Well, no, I have vices. I must say, plenty. Just none that are shareable on this podcast.
Crack is your vice,
I didn't
basically.
want to say it, but
Hmm.
it really helps get my PBs up on my
Yeah.
lips. So yeah,
I was wondering how you were getting in all that volume of training over the last six
yeah.
months.
Just suddenly lose complete connection with the body and just keep pushing through. That's what I've always said. That's my mantra. For those of you listening, there's the sarcasm font encouched, covering all of that.
Yeah. So and Brad isn't taking crack or anything like that, just to be clear. Okay,
Yeah.
let's jump in. We're getting very sidetracked. I've had a cup of coffee as well, so I'm very giddy. That's why. So okay, so there's some examples of basically like you've got the cue, the craving, the reward response, and just to make it really clear, if you're like, okay, how do I actually apply this and make this work for myself? Like you'd have make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. So the cue is you want to make it obvious. The craving is you want to make it attractive. The response is you want to make it easy. And then the reward is you want to make it satisfying. So middle of last year, I bought a book. I actually have it here, a journal, sorry. So it's a 5-year diary. And it's a really simple thing. Like for people listening who can't see the video, it's just a diary with you've got 5 spaces to literally do a paragraph on what you did that day. So there's 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025, 2026. So
Cool.
yeah, exactly. So I was like, oh, it'd be really cool just to have, like, what are we today? Like the 23rd of March, 24th of March. And I can see exactly what I did on the 24th of March over 5 years. So I wanted to get into the habit of just writing this diary every day. I bought it last July, so July 2020, and I filled it out probably 20% of the time. So then in January, I was like, okay, this is something that I want to turn this into a habit that I do every day or multiple times a week. So I actually have 5 years worth of entries, and it's just going to be a really nice thing to have in 5 years time. So I applied this framework, make it obvious, attractive, easy, satisfying. And I've been journaling now like 90% of the time over the last 3 months, so since the start of the year. So the first step that I do, and this is like, we get our clients to walk through this as well, and they don't need to do their diary or journaling, but they just do something similar and apply this framework. So to make it obvious, I leave my diary on the coffee table with a pen beside it. So then when I wake up in the morning, it's really obvious. I see it there. It reminds me. And I've had a lot of conversations with clients over the last few months where their habit dropped off of really, really simple. They had a habit of journaling. And then one of our clients, he said he put his journal in the front drawer in his bedroom. So now he doesn't see the diary anymore, and he doesn't do it anymore because it's not obvious anymore. So if you want to start doing something, start making it really obvious so you see it every day or whenever you want to see it. So putting the journal in the coffee table, making it attractive, having a cup of coffee. So in the morning, I prep a cup of coffee because I love coffee. That's like, I don't drink alcohol. I don't really have like a lot of sugary stuff or anything like that. So that's really my treat. So that is very attractive for me. I'll enjoy a cup of coffee and I'll start my journaling. Then to make it easy, you want to make your resistance to doing the activity super, super low. So I set a 2-minute timer. And after my shower in the morning, I'll just journal for 2 minutes. And if I'm feeling really lazy, it's still only 2 minutes. So I'll just do whatever I can in 2 minutes, write down what I did the day before. And then to make it satisfying, I enjoy the cup of coffee that I've prepared. And then also it's just remembering that over the next 5 years, I'm going to have journal entries. And it's going to be really cool to see, like, oh, wow, this is what I was doing. This is how I was feeling. This is what was going on with my life. And I
How
have
much
5
your
years of data.
handwriting's degraded over time.
Exactly. How much more
Um,
coffee I'm drinking now versus back then.
Oh no, I wanted to ask about the making it easy. Do you ever go, like, say you've journaled for 2 minutes? Do you ever go beyond that 2 minute period if you're feeling it, or is it kind of, is there value in keeping it always just that same kind of little investment of time?
Oh, yeah, really good question. So it's more, I'll generally be more than 2 minutes, but the 2 minutes is just on the days that I feel like I just don't want to do it. It just gets me going. And that,
Mm.
it can be 60 seconds, it can be 30 seconds. It needs to be such a small micro commitment that you can't say no. So, like BJ Fogg that I was talking about earlier, he has a really famous example about like building the habit of flossing your teeth. And he calls it a tiny habit. That's the name of his book. So the tiny habit is you floss one tooth. That's it. It's not like floss all your teeth, because even though flossing your teeth takes 2 minutes maximum, it's still enough resistance to skip it. And that's why we don't floss our teeth. So he says you're just going to work on flossing one tooth. If you want to do more, you can, but like your habit is one tooth. So you can just floss one tooth and then
I
stop,
hope
right?
I hope he recommends not the same tooth every time you floss. People are
That's a,
mixing it up a bit. Yeah, otherwise you just got this one perfect tooth and the rest is just decayed.
that's actually a really good point. Um,
Speaking of, Dan John always talks about, the author and coach Dan John always speaks about flossing your teeth as his advice
yeah,
to clients. Yeah. And it's amazing because um, what I learned recently, fortunately, I am a teeth flosser. But what I learned is that there's links to um, increased risk of heart disease amongst those people who don't floss because of
really.
some kind of, yeah, so I can't remember exactly what it was, but and the dentist confirmed it to me the other day when I went recently, and he said, you floss your teeth, you're about 10% of the people who do. um, so I don't know where he got that stat from. It seemed a little well-rounded and made up on the
Mm.
spot. But yeah, it was interesting to say that, it's not just for dental health. It could well be for something far more important, like your heart. So something to think about for those who are on the fence about flossing.
Yeah, and that's like, again, I'm just such a massive fan of Dan John because he just talks about like how you can make little changes that are going to have a huge impact on your health. So he says, yeah, like floss your teeth, get a checkup, like a medical once or twice a year, wear your seatbelt, like really
Mm.
easy stuff. But he's just like looking at like, okay, how you're going to catch potential diseases or anything, like you find a growth or something on your body early, then you're going to get rid of it a lot quicker than it turning into a more malignant issue. So that's a huge point.
I really
And
like his cleaning regime, the way he suggests that you clean your home. Do you remember that? I don't know which book it's in. I think Interventions, but he says that in his house, uh, one day of the week is a specific room, like it's a thorough cleaning. So Monday is the living room, Tuesday is the bathroom, Wednesday is the kitchen. But every day, so every day you only have one room to clean properly, but every day you do a walkthrough. So you pick up things that need to go back into other parts. You just neaten things up, but then you actually only have to invest your cleaning time significantly over one day, one room a day, which isn't that hard. It's quite a nice approach, which is also just this habit formation. And it's also about getting small, sustainable, little easy steps, that you can do. So something to think about as well.
yeah, that's such a good point, man. And again, yeah, just Dan John it's really like, I think what I love about him is he talks about fitness, but then he just talks about real world simple stuff that just dramatically makes your life better and easier. Um, yeah, he's awesome, man. I know Ray posted in the group earlier. He read his book Intervention, found it super helpful. So like if you are a coach listening to this, and you haven't read any of Dan John's stuff, it's like, I will honestly say this, like I learned more from Dan John's books than a 4-year sports science degree. Like, you know, like if someone was saying, hey, I'm thinking about doing exercise science, I'd be like, don't do that. Just read Dan John's books instead. If you want to be a personal trainer and like do an internship at a good gym, or get a personal trainer to train you and ask him about his systems and how he delivers programming and everything like that, like that's going to be a way better investment of your time and money, in my opinion.
But imagine if you hadn't have gone to Edinburgh, you wouldn't have been introduced to all that coffee. Your life
that's very true. That is very true.
Terribly
That's a good point.
Now.
That's a very good point. And there are a lot of, arguments around that, like just the actual experience of going to university, but then I guess on the other side of that, you could argue that you could just travel and go to different places as well and, meet different people or whatever. So yeah, very, we're going down a lot of different paths today.
a free ranging conversation.
Yeah. People are like, what has this got to do with habits? Let's talk about some clients that have actually implemented this stuff as well. I think that's going to be helpful. So like I did a client interview with Nicole. She joined the program in January. She's in the US, and she's super busy. Like she's a mom. She runs her own business, really, really intense business. Yeah. So she's as busy as you can get. And we just made some incremental changes with her, but she's basically went from doing about 2,000 steps a day, and now she's doing 8,000 steps a day. She also focused on like her planning, which gave her more time back into her day. And the results that she's achieved to date, I think it's 15 pounds. It's either 10 to 15 pounds she's lost. She's also built a lot of muscle mass. And that's just one example. Do you want to talk about Robin or Ray? We can chat about their incremental changes they've made as well.
Yeah, definitely. So Robin, I know, has wanted to increase his protein intake. And for those of you who I've tried to do the same, it is, if you're not in the habit of prioritizing protein, it can be quite a difficult thing to achieve. So you just got to, again, make it easy, make it incremental. So yeah, I started, with a protein shake with better meal planning. So just adding protein to every meal. And this comes down, actually, if I'll move on to Jess, who's another good example of food prep. But one way of getting your protein up is by actually planning your food much more fastidiously. And that might be just making a shopping list every Sunday. So you shop on Mondays, I don't know, but preparing the weekly shopping list and preparing a plan of what meals you're going to eat. So you know that, well, yeah, you're definitely going to hit your protein target because you're eating this and this and this. So I know Robin has worked consistently at it, and it hasn't been, huge adjustments, just little changes over time. It's also something to remember or think about is you decide you're going to increase your protein, for example, and you really want to, but it doesn't mean it's suddenly going to happen. It's going to take time to put these structures in place in order to achieve your goal and to formalize the habit. So something to think about as well. You can do it and you can work at it, but also be aware that it requires a degree of consistency, as you would think is the definition of a habit. But yeah, sometimes when we implement change, we can be a little bit impatient, or maybe haven't thought quite enough about how long it would take or how consistent we have to be.
Yeah, that's a really important point that you made at the end, mate. Like and you might actually start getting a habit going, you're maintaining it, and then something happens. Like you just, again, to quote Dan John, it works so well, I stopped doing it, which is the case a lot of the times, that you're doing something, it's going great, and then like 6 months down the line, you're like, I can't even remember why I stopped doing that, but that was like working really well, and I just completely forgot. So I think a good way to go as well, mate, about explaining maybe what people should focus on, because there's so many different things they can focus on, is let's talk about maybe what you see and what I see as the kind of maybe 1 to 5 biggest issues people struggle with, like why they're not getting the results. And we can just talk about like, okay, what are these kind of 1 to 5 main things? And then we can talk about what habits actually solve these problems. Okay. So do you want to maybe share a few of you that you see, like people are like, oh, this is the big thing that's stopping me from achieving X, Y, and Z?
Yeah, I mean, so definitely, there's so much research at the moment out about, your sleep quality, for instance. So a lack of sleep is going to increase your stress levels. It's going to have implications for your metabolism. It's going to have implications on your food cravings. So the being able to master the habit of good sleep, which sounds crazy to call it a habit, but sorry, I'm just thinking. I'm a bit rambling now, but I was thinking there's a lot of people in my parents' demographic who in South Africa, it's very normal to have a drink of a glass of wine, whiskey, a beer, or whatever it may be, every night. One glass of wine, and often these people struggle with sleep, and they always say, "Why? I don't know why my sleep's so bad." But all this evidence is out to how alcohol can affect your sleep instantly. A very small amount of alcohol. So sorry, I'm just thinking that's a way of thinking. If your sleep isn't quite right, how can you start building a habit to improve your sleep? And it might be reducing your alcohol in the evenings. It might mean what I know you and I in the program would like to talk about is creating a good evening routine. And chiefly amongst that is reducing your tech consumption or your engagement with tech. So putting the phone away 30 minutes, 45, 60, maybe if you're lucky 2 hours before bedtime, no screens, and you maybe read a book or you listen to some music or do a light stretch routine, whatever it may be. That journaling is another good example. Yeah. So a way that's you can sleep might be inhibiting you from getting, well, lack of sleep might be inhibiting you from hitting your goals, but sleep as a habit can be, well, better sleep can be formed as a habit by making some adjustments, like we've said.
Yeah. So let's just kind of name out the kind of 1 to 5 main challenges people have first, and then we can say, okay, this is your specific challenge. This is probably the number one habit that you should be focusing on. So the first one you were saying is like sleep, maybe feeling tired, maybe having food cravings. So that would be one big one. Second one,
perceived lack of time.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, 100%. So, feeling tired, not sleeping well, lack of time. I think that's probably the biggest issue that I hear repeatedly. Like I just don't have enough time to fit it all in. Okay, so that's the second one. We've got time. Anything else you'd say?
Nutrition is a huge part. Not knowing what to eat, when to eat, how much to eat, how to plan the food. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the third one I would say is it's in the kind of movement realm. So like it's either, again, it's kind of similar to nutrition. Like I don't know what I should be doing training wise. I don't know how much of it I should be doing. And I keep hurting myself. So it's kind of linked, like I'm getting injured when I do try and do something, and then I either try and do it, I get injured, so then I have to stop, or I'm kind of overwhelmed and confused and I don't even know what to do if I'm not injured. So basically, to make it really clear, guys, you've got sleep and recovery, or lack of, is number one. Number two is like time, problems with time. Number three is, well, 3 and 4 is kind of a joint with like food. Either I'm craving, I'm eating sugar and way too much stuff that I'm just clearly, I'm constantly in a calorie surplus and I'm gaining weight, or I'm just maintaining the weight that I don't want to stay at, or I just don't even know what I should be eating, right? And then the final one is just movement. So, and that's like injuries, and then just like clarity on actually what to do. Okay, so
I could throw in another one as maybe impatience as well, but that's actually more me than the clients I work with.
Impatience, yeah. Well, I
Yeah,
guess
you
like
in a hurry. You want things done. Yeah, maybe
yeah, I guess
underestimate. Sorry.
yeah, that's a really good one as well because it's more like managing expectations, I think, because you know, we're in a society now where everything like you get something on Amazon, it arrives tomorrow. Like it's pretty amazing, right? Um, so why can't I get a six pack tomorrow? Like that would be amazing as well.
Especially because
So
I watched that video and it said I could get it in 60 seconds. So
yeah, the funniest actually scammer. This guy is hilarious. Have you heard of V Shred?
yes, only
This
negative
guy,
things.
this guy is, V Shred. This guy's the biggest scammer ever. Like he's in amazing shape, and I think he's based in California. But there was a thing on recently where he's doing videos now where it looks like he's on Joe Rogan being interviewed. So the backdrop is like Joe Rogan. So people are like, "Oh, he's been interviewed on Joe Rogan. Like
Wow.
he's huge." But it's just a scat. Like he's the biggest scammer in the fitness industry. This guy is just unbelievable how much of a scammer he is. But anyway, that I just thought I'd share that was like so funny when I read that. I was like, wow, this guy's next level. But
I wonder what the quality of his sleep is.
yeah, I don't know, but like he's just unbelievable what this guy's doing. But okay, so let's just say someone's looking at that list, okay, 1 to 4, sleep, time, food, movement, and they're like, yeah, training's okay, food's okay, I'm fitting stuff in, time's okay, but yeah, my sleep can be definitely improved. So give that person 1 or 2 habits that they should be focusing on.
Okay. Going to bed earlier would be one habit. So that might just be something really simple, like 10 minutes earlier, 15 minutes earlier, nothing huge. And if you can hit that sustainably, then you could look at bumping it up to 25 minutes or 30 minutes. You get the point. You just gradual increase. So going to bed earlier and tied to that is having a kind of wind down routine in the evening. And that can be really simple if that's what you need, like turning your phone off, putting it on airplane mode, whatever it may be for 30 minutes, or saying no screens for 30 minutes before you go to bed, 60 minutes before you go to bed. Maybe adding more complexity to it if you want, like reading a book. So no screens. You go to bed, say 30 minutes earlier. You don't look at your phone for that period. You read a book. It could be something as simple as that.
Lovely. So like
Yeah.
basically, yeah, just if you're going to bed now at midnight and you're getting up at 6:30 because that's the time you need to get up at to get ready, and this is what you've been doing for years. Like we've a lot of clients who literally are going to bed at 12, 1 o'clock, some of them 2 o'clock, and getting up at 6:30. They're exhausted, they're craving food, they might be struggling with weight issues. When we fix that elephant in the room, everything's easier. So like Brad said, you're basically going to focus on, okay, incrementally increasing your time in bed. So if it's 2 a.m., you're starting at 1:45, 1:30, but also the wind down is the big thing. So getting off screens, even 15 minutes before bed is totally fine, but you're trying to build that out to an hour over the next kind of 3 months, we'll say, depending on where you're at. Because an hour can be a long time. If you're used to just being, kind of switching off and just consuming loads of stuff before bed, an hour is going to not be possible, but 15 minutes is. Okay, so that's the first one around sleep and recovery. Also with that, guys, if you are struggling to just like, you're like, I've tried it, but I'm actually wired and I can't sleep, then a really good thing is like 10-3-2-1-0. This is from Craig Ballantyne. So 10 minutes before bed, no caffeine, or sorry, 10 hours before bed, no caffeine. 10 minutes, just have an espresso. 10 minutes before bed, 11 minutes before bed.
It's going to be one hell of a dream state.
Yeah, they're like, I didn't sleep last night because I followed your advice. And then 3 hours before bed, no food. 2 hours before bed, no alcohol. 1 hour before bed, no screens, no work. And then 0 is 0 snoozes in the morning. So 10, 3, 2, 1, 0. Really, really simple framework to follow. Okay. Also, the US Army, if their soldiers have issues with sleeping, the big thing that they focus on is movement throughout the day. So if you're not moving and you're not tired, it's because you're not moving your body. That's a big thing as well. So like Brad was saying, like you have to wind down, but also start upping your movement throughout the day. So second one, around time. So let's just say the person is, yeah, they're sleeping okay. They're not really, the big thing is they're just like, I just don't have enough time to do this stuff. So like, what advice would you give that person?
I'd say plan, which takes up time, but it gives you time back. So maybe it's something, start really simple. You just plan the next day, okay, so it's Sunday night. You plan your Monday, you look at what your work requirements are, you look at what your house duties are, your family duties, and you see, well, when can you, what can you fit in? So how can you put a training session in there? And then put it in the diary, put it in your calendar, block that time out like you would a business meeting or a dentist appointment or whatever it may be. This is your time. You don't schedule anything around that. So that would be one way of starting that. And then just kind of seeing if you can plan further ahead, like on a weekly basis, perhaps. But tied to both of these is kind of what we've been saying the whole time, is make it easy to implement. So if you're short on time, the idea of a 60-minute workout session is probably, even if you can actually fit it in, it's probably going to seem implausible or inconceivable at the time. So start really small. Okay, well, you're going to block out 15 minutes before you get in the shower in the morning to do some kind of training. And you build that up over time. You can manage to do that on your designated days for a week or two. See if you can up it to 20 minutes. Same as everything. Start small, build gradually as you can.
Yeah, great advice, man. And like Ray, who's a trainer as well, he's in the coaching program, but he was in he was in IT for like 30 years, and then he's left that, and now he's teaching Pilates and personal training. But he was saying what he found really helpful is when he started putting it in his calendar, like everything else, he could see then when his week was on, maybe someone moved in an appointment or something came up on Tuesday morning at 7 when he was meant to train. So then he could see that, and then he would just move the session. So he said in the past he would forget and just miss sessions, whereas now he could be much more proactive versus reactive, right? And that stuff makes a huge difference. If in the past you just kind of forgot about sessions or life got in the way, which is kind of the case for a lot of people, and now you're catching stuff early, I mean, the compounding impact of that over a year is insane. You go from kind of missing half the workouts to hitting all your workouts, or like 90% of them. And that's just a completely different ball game. And then as Brad was saying, like even 10 minutes is fine because you're not trying to get optimal outcomes here. You're just trying to build a habit of training currently. Once you've built a habit of training, like, okay, I'm showing up twice a week for 15 minutes for the last 6 weeks, then we can say, okay, this is now kind of built into your routine. Now we can put in like a 30-minute workout. So, okay, awesome, Brad. Next is the person's thing is that they're like, yeah, food is, that's my issue. And I think that's, for a lot of us, food is a big challenge because there's a big obesity issue, and food is overly abundant and cheap calories are everywhere. So like, where would you say that person should be starting?
Okay, well, there's a few places you can start depending on the person's starting point. But so if the issue is trying to reduce calories, is that what you're looking at as a first example? So if someone's goal is to try and lose weight and it's just everything's really difficult, one of the easiest things, at least what I've found, and I know a lot of our clients have had success, is just fasting. So that could be something like a 16-hour fast and an 8-hour eating window. For some people, this isn't going to work. So if fasting is something that you feel like you can do, like you eat dinner on a Thursday night and you miss breakfast, so you eat dinner at 8 p.m., you'll eat your next meal at 12 midday the next day. That's an easy way to start for some. Fasting's not for everyone, as I said. So one of the ways you could do that is you could try and create some, just a simple thing of reducing your portion size. So that could be a way of like, okay, well, I'm just going to have less on my plate, or I'm going to get a smaller plate, something like that. So, and if then maybe on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you have a smaller plate, but Thursday you have a big plate, doesn't matter so much. You're building these habits, you're trying to slowly reduce your food intake. So those would be like two accessible ways for people who are trying to reduce calories. But overall, when it always comes to food, I think we'll both agree that planning, so meal prep, whether that's something as simple as having a designated shopping list and a designated shopping day, or something a little bit more of a requirement where you have like 2 or 3 batch cooking days in your week. I know some people I've tried before and I've never really succeeded is to make Sunday my cooking day, particularly in winter. I always thought I could do this, and I don't know. I ended up just making one massive pot of something and then eating it for 6 days. And I was like, I can't maintain this. So one of the things that I recommend is just say, if you cook twice a week or 3 times a week, and you just make enough for 2 meals each time, that's your dinner taken care of 7 days of the week, and you've only had to cook 3 days. So something to consider.
Yeah, for sure, man. And then also with regards to food, the big one is sleep. So, the clients that want to lose weight most in the program, when we analyze their sleep, it's usually not good. So that's like generally the elephant in the room that needs to be addressed. And then alcohol can be a big thing as well. That's just like a lot of extra calories. But also if you're drinking, your decision making is worse, so just everything goes out the window. You get much more loose, and like you'll just end up eating crap when you're kind of tipsy or whatever. And then the final one would be protein as well. Upping your protein can be a good thing just from keeping you satiated, so you're not getting feeling you're constantly hungry, which can be the case if you're on a kind of higher carbohydrate diet. All right, last one, Brad, is around movement. They're like, food isn't bad, sleep is good, and time is okay. I just don't have a clue when it comes to movement. So like, what would you be recommending for that person?
For everyone, always first step to start walking. So it's going to be huge benefits from a weight management point of view, from energy expenditure point of view, from tiring yourself out to help you sleep, to having a nice wind down activity after dinner, a wake up activity before breakfast, a break during a working day. It's so accessible, and so it's not easy simultaneously. It's accessible, it's free, it's enjoyable, but it's still not easy for a lot of us, right? Actually getting those steps in. So I would say the first thing you should do if you're not moving is to start moving through walking. It's very likely that, obviously some people who maybe are not quite able-bodied or differently abled or have serious health issues or weight issues, you need to speak to your doctor. But generally, for almost everyone, walking is a safe bet. So that would be the starting point.
Yeah, and then if you were to give advice on, like, let's just say the person hasn't done much in the last 10 years, they're in their late 30s, maybe even early 40s, and they're like, look, I want to do something else. Like, I've been walking now, I'm doing 5,000 steps a day, but what would you recommend from a movement? It might be just principles to think about or specific exercises, just so they have something a nugget that they can actually leave the podcast with.
Yeah, well, definitely, if you keep your walking up, prioritizing strength training is going to be really good. And strength training can be super simple. You can start off once or twice a week. Twice a week would be really great. and you could focus on full body movements. And if you, full body sessions in the, 1 or 2 full body sessions. And you could think about a squat. So let's say day 1 is a horizontal push, a vertical push, and a squat. And then the other day is a hinge and a vertical pull and a horizontal pull. It could be as simple as that when you're starting. So you're getting push, pull, hinge, squat, and ideally you want to be bringing in some kind of core training there as well. But if you're just getting started, you already make quite some progress with a routine as simple as that. So examples might be, let's say you don't have any weights at home, you're doing this at home, or you could do a body weight squat, or you could do a lunge. For horizontal pushing, you could do a push-up or a push-up on your knees. For a vertical push, you could be doing something like a shoulder push-up or a pike push-up. For those of you who don't know, you can get in touch and we can explain it to you. But there are, if you've got a pair of light weights, you could do overhead shoulder press. So there are lots of things you could do. Start trying to work on a handstand, depending on where your starting point is. So there are lots of things you can do. Pulling, you could, if you had some resistance bands, or if you had some weights, or if you had a pull-up bar or a pair of gymnastics rings, you can do any number of pulling activities. And hinging might be something like a glute bridge. It could be a single leg deadlift. So the options are, you don't have to make it complicated, and there's lots to do, and lots to do without any equipment as well.
Yeah, for sure, man. So again, like push, pull, squat, hinge, they're the kind of, and core work, they're the kind of fundamental movement patterns to think about. If you're unsure, like we've got lots of free resources in the Mobility Mastery group, or just message either of us on social media. And that's the main stuff I wanted to cover today, guys, is just habit change and understanding that a lot of this stuff is you're on autopilot mode and it's just happening. And if you're not happy with the trajectory of the way things are going, you can change this. And the example I like to use with clients is like, it's like you're in an airplane and it's going 1 degree to the left. And with habit change, you start moving 1 degree to the right. So like in the next 2 weeks, you mightn't feel a dramatic difference, but in 6 or 12 months, you're literally in a different continent because of these changes. Okay. And this stuff all works. It's all research backed. It's also anecdotally proven from 12 years of coaching clients and applying it to myself as well. So this is huge, like habit frameworks to actually follow. And that's kind of everything I wanted to cover today, guys. Anything you want to finish up with, Brad?
No, I think, it's really important just to think about, like we said, start small. Don't let it overwhelm you, because as soon as it overwhelms you, you're going to resist it. So just make it really small to start with, and you can build up over time.
Awesome.